BlogTalkRadio, the world's largest online radio network.
Here's Robin.
So you were telling me a story about the differences between women who lunch in L.A. and women who lunch in New York, and we're in this restaurant now, so I think that's a great story to tell.
Well, it's fun lunching in New York because women have a more sophisticated, I think, overall view of things, but the culture here is a more sophisticated, highbrow kind of culture, where our culture in Los Angeles consists, we have an art culture scene, but we also have a very natural kind of element in our lifestyle that doesn't really prevail here, where the sun doesn't shine between the high rises.
So how do the women differ, let's say, in terms of, you know, the people that lunch in New York and then the people that lunch in L.A.?
Well, I can only speak from my experience, which is that when I lunch in L.A., we're girls playing, and we like to dress up and have tea and scones and play. And in New York, when you have lunch, it seems more serious. The pace of life is much faster here, and I think that prevails everywhere, even in women who lunch.
Now, you come from a very small town, so apparently your upbringing was much different than the way you experienced life here. So was it sort of like a shock? Did you were you treated differently? Did you find it was totally different?
Well, yeah, I grew up with a real strong sense of ethics. I think that says it all.
And your ethics were totally blown when you moved?
No, my ethics have stayed intact, which I think is why I've survived the transition between a small town rural lifestyle and a international kind of jet set lifestyle.
What are those major differences, if you could sort of pinpoint them?
Well, I can only say that I was brought up with a sense of you're only as good as your word. You only get respect if you demand it. The measure of who you are as a person is only with how much integrity you walk through your life. And I find that once you get into big business and big cash and fast-moving things, that sometimes those things get pushed aside.
So what attracted you to that lifestyle?
Well, there were things I wanted to do in artistic expressions that weren't available to me in the country, that are only available to me in the jungle of the city.
So you were sort of thrown into that kind of world in a way?
Well, I guess I'd say more that I jumped into it than I was thrown into it, because I really wanted to be here.
Now, your new movie, Total Recall, it's so much fantasy involved. There's so much science fiction to the max kind of a thing. What were your fantasies about maybe space travel?
Well, I'm still the kind of person that I lay down in my yard and I look up at the stars and I just dream and hope that spaceship is going to come down and pick me, and I can go and see and know what it's like, and I can experience the wonders of another place.
What do you think life would be like for you on Mars, if you could kind of think about that?
Well, I'd be dead because Mars is uninhabitable. But in the sense of how foreign that it is, I have a real gypsy spirit, and traveling has always been a wonderful outlet for my creative impulses. So, though Mars is obviously not an option, I'm certain that there are places that are not an option, and I would love to have the opportunity to experience that.
Now, how did this all come about with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and when you first got that call, what was that feeling like? How did you react to that?
Well, I reacted originally with some skepticism, because when I got the script, I thought, I've done about as many action movies as one girl needs to do. And then I was told that the director was Paul Verhoeven, who I respect and admire tremendously. So I decided to go and have a meeting and meet Paul, just for the opportunity of knowing him. And when I met him, and when I heard what he had to say about the script, and when I saw him as a person, I was very, very excited to see that he was in person as I had imagined him to be by the films he directed in the past. Really a terrific guy. So I came back in and I auditioned and I got the job. Lucky me.
What was that audition like? What did you have to do?
Well, so in this case, and I suppose it was because Arnold and the studio also see the choices of the top choice girls before the final selection is made, you're put on film by a video camera. And the camera is set up on a tripod and you're set on a sofa in front of the tripod. It's a really ridiculous situation. You can't possibly give a performance that means anything about anything for this type of movie. So I told him I didn't think I could do it. And so he asked me what I needed. I told him I needed some room. I needed to move around. I needed to express the character, which when you see the movie you will see is a very, very physical character. So he opened the door and pushed the furniture out into the hallway and took the camera off the tripod and crawled around on the floor with me. And we played like babies in a sandbox, and it was great.
You and Arnold, or you and the director?
Myself and Paul Verhoeven, the director. Arnold wasn't there. I never met Arnold till I was cast.
Did you have preconceptions about Arnold? Anything that you felt were totally different than who he actually was?
Well, I think that Arnold represents something that we think of as stereotypically very male and very virile and very exciting, and however we view that, as an intellectual, we might not want to experience that for its sensual qualities, or as a woman, we might not want to admit that that's our type of guy, or as a guy, we might not want to admit that that's the sort of guy that is something we admire. But ultimately, I think that Arnold's success is because he does meet a fantasy that exists in very many people, and certainly in me. And when I met him, it was a lot of fun, and it was fun to work with him, and really exciting.
Do you find that you evoke a sort of fantasy in people?
Well, I certainly hope so. You'll have to ask the people at hand.
What sort of fantasy would you like to evoke in somebody?
I can't really say, because I think fantasies should be left to the privacy of those who have them. But I would like to set, by example, some standard of compassion and kindness and integrity.
Moving on to the Playboy spread, I think that's a perfect transition. What attracted you to doing that, and tell me how all of that came about.
Well, Playboy had been talking to me for some time about doing it, and I had considered it off and on for some time and pulled out of doing it for various reasons of my own personal insecurities. I didn't feel good about my own body image, in today's society there's an image that's presented on television and billboards and everywhere as sort of a perfection of femininity, and the real feminine spirit doesn't seem to be nurtured. And it took me a long time before I felt centered and calm and nurturing of my own feminine spirit. And once I had reached that point in my own life to celebrate that and play with that in the Playboy thing, it was really natural and very easy for me.
And then, on the other side of the spectrum, there are certain women who believe that it's, not such a great thing, what you did. So how do you react to something like that?
Well, I think that just as with fantasies and with reaching them and exploring them and experiencing them, it's an individual thing. I would recommend that those women don't do it.
Did you learn anything about yourself after the shoot and when it was all over that you might not have discovered before?
Yeah, I looked at the pictures and I liked what I saw. They looked like I felt about myself, and I felt good. And since that time, I've been infinitely less erotic about my body. I've accepted my body and appreciated my body, and I have done what I think I had looked to others to do, which was to validate myself and my femininity. And doing it for myself has been so much more rewarding.
Specifically men, I would assume.
No, not necessarily, because I think ultimately that women look at each other and judge each other more on the way they're dressed and the way they look and the way that their body is than men do. I find that men appreciate women for the blossoming kind of flower that they are, and that there are a lot of different kinds of flowers in the world to smell, to touch, to appreciate in a lot of different ways. Where women, I think, look at each other more to see what designer has made their clothes and how they look and if their thighs are in shape. I don't think it's as much of a thing for men. I think men, though they look with a more visual perspective, look with a more sensual perspective.
When you look in the mirror, let's say, what do you see? Because sometimes, you're a beautiful woman, but then we also talk about what's inside, what our self-image is. Well,
I have found that since I have become more centered as a person, I look in the mirror less to begin with. And when I look in the mirror, it's usually for a reason. Does my shirt look okay with my pants? And if it does, I go. Or is my hair working? Of course, I have those days when it doesn't. I mean, I waited 6 weeks to renew my driver's license till the day I thought my hair turned out. So, I'm just as weird as everybody.
Do you find that your beauty has been kind of a hindrance to you in your career at all?
I don't think so. I think that I am who I am. That's a unique statement, and I have the career that I have, and that's a unique career. I'm happy with the way things have gone. I feel like I'm right on time.
Now, what attracted you to modeling in the first place? I mean, that was an impulsive thing to do. Do you often do impulsive things like that?
I do impulsive things, but I don't do impulsive things all the time, and I don't think I do impulsive things foolhardily. I do them impulsively if I feel them to the core of my being, then I do them. I don't do things impulsively, frivolously.
And modeling?
As for the modeling thing, I always wanted to be an actress, but I came to New York and it was an opportunity to have a job, a good paying job, and a place to live and to travel. And I was a very inexperienced girl from a very small town. And I realized that if I wanted to be an actress, I was going to have some life experience so that I knew what the heck I was talking about.
Do you find that modeling, in a sense, gave you that sort of opening into acting?
It gave me the opportunity to travel and experience a lot of other places, a lot of countries and cities and people and lifestyles that I wouldn't have experienced before. Modeling itself, standing in front of the camera wearing a bunch of clothes, is like, I don't know, it gave me an ease with being in front of the camera, but it wasn't something that was profoundly fulfilling to me.
And did you find that at times it was difficult for you to sort of compromise what you really wanted to do, and sometimes you wanted to just give up on that aspect?
No, I felt pretty lucky. I didn't really know why I had such a great opportunity. I never thought I was a great beauty, and certainly when I went into modeling in the late 70s and early 80s, the style was not the voluptuous style of today, which I feel comfortable in, but a style of a very, linear figure, straight lines, thin lines, and that's not who I am nor who I was. And at that time, I felt sort of wrong everywhere I went. So I didn't feel I felt lucky that I had the opportunity to do it. I felt lucky when I finally made my niche, which was beauty modeling, cosmetics and hair products and perfume and jewelry and diamonds, stuff like that. But I never really felt like it was my thing or felt like it was my calling. I see girls now that I think are so beautiful and so lovely and so great at it. And they're great at it because they express a certain joy in their life. They express a certain a certain positive feeling that when you look at the pictures you feel good. And I think when you can do that you're supplying something that has a positive effect in the world. I think my own personal discomfort with it didn't afford me that possibility.
Now, how does that translate into your security about your acting career?
I'm a good actress and I know it. That's it.
And when did you begin to feel that way?
I felt that I was on the road to it probably 4 or 5 years ago, but I knew at that time that I wasn't capable of delivering the real goods. I would say sometime within probably the last year and a half, I've gotten to a point where I feel that, although certainly I hope to continue to learn and learn a lot and grow a lot, that I am prepared to deliver a lot now.
Now, talking more about the nudity aspect in Total Recall, we don't see, you on camera nude or anything, but how does taking pictures in Playboy perhaps translate someday to doing a nude scene in a movie?
Well, I've already done nude scenes in movies like 3 times, but it never got the big stir that doing Playboy did. I think Playboy has some sort of mystique, some sort of intrigue, some sort of like, oh, you're doing this like bad, nasty thing when you look at Playboy. When people go to the movies and I take off my top, they forget it in a week, So maybe I should have done this 10 years ago.
Was that like a hair sort of raising experience for you the first time you had to do a nude scene?
The first time I had to do a nude scene was in a film called Irreconcilable Differences. And the fortunate thing about it was that it was a girl who had just become an actress who was doing a nude scene for the first time. So it wasn't easy, but it wasn't easy for the character. I just permitted myself to experience it as it was because it was so true for the character that I was playing. We were doing the same thing at the same time, having the same experience. So there was myself and the character that I was playing, which in an odd way is almost like having your imaginary friend there doing it with you, and it lends a certain sense of confidence and support to those kind of situations. So it was scary, but it wasn't horrible.
Because in a sense, you're acting also. You're in character.
Yeah, and it was done for a joke, and I personally think that without humor, I'd be dead. So, I can do anything for a laugh, really, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody.
Where does your sense of humor come from?
Well, in all honesty, in myself and in the comedians that I've met, I think that humor comes from the pain. I think that it's a real survivor's way of turning your pain around. I mean, I look at the way the world reacted, a week after the space shuttle blew up. There were 10 million horrible jokes about it. But it's the world's way of coming back and saying, I can look death and tragedy in the eye. I can survive. I can go beyond it. I can somehow make it light or make it less or put it away so that I don't have to deal with it right now.
So in a way, it pulls you through the bad times.
Yeah, pulls you through the bad times and makes the good times even better.
Let's talk about men for a minute here. I read recently that when you go on dates, oftentimes you walk into the bathroom and read a book. What do you read? War and Peace?
Well, I did read War and Peace, yeah. I did, and I liked it a lot. It depends. I have sort of a deal with myself since I didn't finish college that I read a classic and I read current things, current writers that I like at the same time. So I might be reading Tolstoy and Kurt Vonnegut at the same time, or I might be reading Proust and Truman Capote at the same time. It just depends on the thing.
And you do this on dates?
Well, I I used to do it on dates, but now that I'm more of a grown-up, I'd just rather stay home and avoid the date, listen to a little Cole Porter and read some book I like.
Now, why aren't men interesting anymore? I mean, why is it that we're bored with them?
Oh, I'm not bored with men. I'm deeply and intrinsically fascinated with men. I would say personally they're my all-time favorites. But I am not indulgent or abusive with men.
So, and how does that translate into not dating?
I don't want to go on dates with someone unless I really care for them. I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste my time, and I don't want to pretend.
Well, what are the most interesting qualities about men for you?
I can't say on public network, hon.
We'll tailor it a little.
There's no tailoring this.
What about mental attributes?
I like people. I like men and women who are bright and exciting and interesting and compassionate, enlightened, have a sense of caring for their fellow man.
And how would you like people to see you?
I'd like them to see me however they do. I'd like them to experience me just however they do. I'm not here to manipulate their thoughts, just to be and to give what I have to give and to be appreciated by those who do and not appreciated by those who don't.
Well, what would you say are your outstanding qualities, and what would you say are the things that you feel proud of about yourself? I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm a good friend. I think I'm honest. I think that's a good quality. I also think it's the worst quality that I have. I don't know. I think I have a joy of life, and I like to share that with the people that are close to me. But I can't really say. I mean, those things are really subjective, and we never have a view of ourselves that jives with anyone else's view of us. I mean, my view of myself changes every 10 minutes. Really? What is it now? Right now I'm this sort of tired, jet-lagged actress just dying for this movie to come out so I can go on a vacation. What is up next for you? Where are you going to vacation? Some tropical island somewhere, close to the water, close to the sand, close to the sun, in nature, a little hiking. And speaking of sand, your next movie is Blood and Sand, right? What was your role in that? Well, I played the bad girl, of course. That's my specialty. Is it your specialty? Why is it, do you think that people choose you for the bad girl, so to speak? Well, I think because it's so much fun to be bad, but I'm not bad in any sort of vitriolic sense. I'm bad because it's fun. And when you watch me being bad, it's my hope, and I think that it has come to fruition, that you experience me being bad with a lot of fun. Like, you love to hate this girl. And she does all those things that you wish you could do if you could unleash the bad part of you. She's the kind of girl that when her boss yells at her, she walks up to him and kicks him in the leg. And you don't do that because you don't want to be fired. But as an actress in a movie, I can do anything I want. And they go, okay, great, thanks very much, and good night. And in a way, the character in Total Recall was so ballsy. I mean, she was just like there, right? Right. She was very bold. But the whole movie is very over the top. The love is greater than love. The intrigue is greater than intrigue. The bad are better than bad. The funny is so funny you can't believe it. The intensity is so intense. It's a sensationalistic kind of film. Now, previous roles that you've done have always been described with adjectives like drug crazed or, is that going to change for you? Yeah, I think it'll change from drug crazed to sex crazed. After all, I'm an adult. Any future roles that have that sort of title in them, or?
Well, I'm signed to do a movie to play a Hollywood agent who I think is power crazed, but that's, I like to play characters that are a little over the top. I like to play characters that are a little bit out there, that see things from a little bit of a quirky point of view.
What's that?
Well, it's like, I remember calling my mom one time and telling her about someone I was dating, and she said, "Isn't he a little eccentric?" And I said, "From whose perspective, Mom?" And, I think we have to accept who we are. I'm a little eccentric. I'm a little strange. And I like things that are unusual. Sometimes the most unusual things are the simplest things in life. So I can't say unusual in terms of enormous and decadent, but things that are unusual and unique. It can be that I think it's so unusual and wonderful and fabulous that Donald Trump has to have the biggest vote there ever is. I think that's really funny. I also think that a simple act of kindness on the street is unusual and unique and as valuable, if not more, of course, than that sort of bizarrety.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
Always new. Always refreshing. Always candid. Always milling about. Robin Milling delivers what celebrities are saying to you.
Blog Talk Radio, where millions of hosts and listeners gather.